Hey guys, it's Sasha. UK inflation is going up again, and it's going up fast. All the news headlines today said that UK inflation has gone up to 2.6% in November. But this is the wrong inflation measure because this is CPI, which does not include the cost of housing or council tax. CPIH, the real inflation measure, has gone up from 3.2 to 3.5%. And there are several big reasons why inflation in the UK is going up again. The first reason is that the cost of housing has gone absolutely bananas. You can see on this chart that the owner-occupier cost line, the purple-ish one, is up at 7.8%. And this line is now dragging the overall rate of inflation up with it. The reason this line is so high is because the UK mortgage market is regulated by dimwits. So almost everybody in the UK has fixed term mortgages for only between 2 and 5 years, despite buying the house over a, say, 25 or 30 year period. After your fixed term is up, you either have to go into the standard rate, which is a few percent higher than the Bank of England base rate, or you have to remortgage again. So if you had a mortgage at 1.7%, which you say took out 4 years ago, and that deal expires, the standard rate at the moment might be 7 or 8%. And if you have 10 to 20 years remaining on your mortgage, that means an increase of 50 to 100% on your monthly payment. Because it takes some time for people's mortgages to come to that point, there is a big lag effect between when the interest rates go up and when we begin seeing it in the data. And that point, the bit where we're seeing it in the data, is now. The other option is to remortgage. But if you do that, you then have to take one of the current deals that are available at around 5% or even higher if you have a lower deposit. And that's again going to be a big jump. 5% is about 3 times what you probably had if you remortgaged or got your last mortgage 3 or 4 years ago. So the monthly payment is going to go up substantially anyway. At the same time, the UK government has been passing one law after another penalising landlords, making it more expensive, more difficult, more frustrating to be a landlord, and so being a landlord has become more and more expensive and more risky. The costs that you can offset for tax reasons have been cut right back. It has become more difficult to evict tenants who don't pay, yada yada yada. Stamp duty and tax treatment of buy-to-let properties have become much more hostile, and this all comes on top of the fact that landlords also have mortgages. So their mortgage payments are going up as well. So rent prices have gone up to 7.6% annual inflation in the most recent data, and owner-occupier housing costs are at 7.8%. The thing is, these costs are only 22.8% in sum of the total inflation read, because the UK inflation report averages out between every possible person category, which includes people who have inherited their houses, have already repaid them because they're older, and so on and so on. The truth is, if you're talking about the median person, especially the median working person, the typical person in that situation will be paying rent or mortgage. And that payment is not going to be just 23%. It'll typically be more like 40%. If you live anywhere near London, that's probably going to be substantially higher. But here is a crazy bit of maths for you. If the weight of owner-occupier housing costs and rent was 40% instead of 23%, and everything else stayed the same, all the other numbers were exactly the same, then the CPIH, the full real inflation read in November, would be at 4.5%, which is substantially higher, and everyone would be panicking. But that is the more real number. That is actually what is happening right now, right? Is just reweighting the current data. That is the number that represents the median and affects the lives of the majority of people. And here is something else that's interesting. In the report, it says that the largest upward contribution to the monthly change in both CPIH and CPI annual rates came from transport, with a further large upward effect in CPIH from housing and household services. So apparently, the reason that inflation is going up, primarily the number one reason, is transport. But then you go and look at the data, and transport is negative. Transport is minus 1.1% in November after being minus 2% in October. And then look on the right, in the right-hand column, the 1 month rate for transport is minus 0.8%. So transport is actually having a strong negative effect on the overall rate of inflation, especially in the last 1 month period that they are explicitly referencing. It's just that the negative effect in November on an annualized basis is slightly less strongly negative than the negative effect that we had in October. And I am sorry to be that guy, but please, if you are one of the brain-damaged chimps at the Office of National Statistics who is putting this data together, who makes these reports, please, can you just stop lying? Can you stop obfuscating? Can you stop all of this bullshit? Please stop printing complete and utter horseshit. This is completely disingenuous. Transport is not causing inflation to go up. This is incorrect. It is mathematically wrong. Something that is pulling the overall inflation number down, not just down by being lower than the average, down by being negative, is most definitely not the main reason why inflation is going up. The biggest driver is housing. It's right there in the data. It's the biggest number. And you know what the most frustrating thing is? This was extremely obvious as a problem, as a future driver of inflation for a long time now. Extremely obvious. All the government statisticians, though, all of these people working for the ONS, seem to be surprised by this. Look, in the most recent OBR report that came out in October, there is a section on owner-occupier cost. There is a whole separate forecast on OOH. It's a big topic. But a year and a half ago, in March 2023, in the same exact report, OOH was not mentioned a single time anywhere in the report. Literally not a single mention of the word OOH, because the Tweedledums at the Treasury, at the Bank of England, at the ONS, and at the government back then did not seem to understand the lag effect of this data and the high interest rates that will cause a big problem with the secondary inflation issue in the UK, specifically in the UK, because of the way that things work here. But you know what? You know who was really, really concerned about the impact of OOH and rent prices on inflation a year and a half ago, exactly at the same time? This guy. The cost of housing is growing at 4% in the CPIH data and will eventually have to catch up with real-world increases in house prices and rents. So whenever that does come through in the coming months, this will exert more and more and more upward pressure on inflation data. Now let's go back to the latest inflation report, because there are some really big issues. First up, it is a big concern that literally throughout all of the numbers, you can see warning flags. It's not just one or two things. Everywhere. Alcohol and tobacco inflation is at 6.8%, very high. The monthly movement is plus 1.4%. This is extremely high, much higher than the annual version. Food inflation is only 2%, which is good, but the month-on-month movement is accelerating again. It was 0.5% in November, which is an annualized rate of 6%. We already talked about housing costs. They are a problem. Health is still at 5.5%. That's pretty high. Communication is at 4.8%, although trending negative in the month-on-month movements. Education is at 5%. Restaurants and hotels are at 4%. The issue across all of this data is that it's not the case that most of the situation is okay. Most of the numbers are fine, but there's one or two sectors, one or two outliers that are causing the overall number to look bad. There are red warning flags all over the place. That is a problem. And look at the bottom. Services inflation actually ticked up from 5.6 to 5.7%. Services inflation refuses to go away, and the reason for that is the brand new wage data that came out yesterday, and wages are now growing at 5.2% per year. Wages growing fast means the cost of employing people is growing fast. The cost to companies are increasing fast. The vast majority of the UK economy is services, so a large part of the cost of the entire economy is wages. So high wage growth is directly pushing inflation. We knew that that was going to happen, and it is now happening. Salaries are going up. It costs more to employ people. Businesses put up prices because of the fact that it costs them more. Then people can't afford those higher prices. They go demand higher wage increases, and so on and so on. And I know that each time that I say this, there are people in the comments section that don't understand the actual problem with wage increases, because the same people keep saying over and over how it is unfair to blame inflation on the poorest workers. It is not their fault. Their wages should be going up. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And if their wages do not go up, how are things going to get better? How are things going to improve for those people? Well, the issue here is not really the wages of the lowest paid people going up. It's not the wages going up at all. The issue is the reason why those wages are going up. That's the problem. In a healthy economy that is booming, wages can go up pretty fast. Wages in the United States in the last 15 years have gone up way faster than in the UK. The median wage in the poorest state in the US, which is Mississippi, is now higher than the median wage in the whole of the UK. 15 to 20 years ago, the median wage in the US and the UK was roughly equal. In fact, UK was slightly ahead for a while. And the reason that wages in the US have gone up so much, so fast, is because their economy is booming. Economy is booming, companies are doing very well, profits are going up, employees begin receiving higher pay packets, employees begin being valued more. In the UK, the economy is not booming. It is doing the exact opposite. In the last 5 years, the UK economy has been flat, gone nowhere. Companies are leaving the UK stock exchange in their droves. Wages are going up not because of anything to do with the economy, but because of legislation, not because of organic reasons and companies doing well. No, the government is forcing wages up even though companies are not in a place to pay or sustain those higher salaries. The minimum wage is up about 60% in the last 6 years. 60% in 6 years. That is a huge increase for an economy that has flatlined in the same exact time period. The economy's gone nowhere, but wages are exploding. And when the minimum wage goes up, it pushes everything with it. Inflation, but also wages of the people above minimum wage. Right now, if you work a full working week on minimum wage, your salary is something like £23,000. So everyone working and earning above minimum wage in the 20s, maybe £30,000, there's going to be pressure on those salaries to go up as well, because those people are getting very close to just earning the minimum wage. Last year, minimum wage went up 10%. This year, it will go up another 7%. And it's going up a lot faster for young people because the UK government is gradually scrapping the special lower minimum wage requirement for young people who have just recently left school. Now, wages are going up artificially because of legislation, and that is a bad thing. This is exactly what causes inflation, causes economic failure, causes everyone to feel poorer. It sounds good, it wins votes, but it's really bad for the economy. It's bad for the very people who vote for this type of policy. Wages going up faster because of the economy booming is a great thing. It's a good thing. It's something we should aspire to have. But the UK government is too busy taxing people, poking sticks into the wheels of their own bicycle, and doing absolutely nothing to actually stimulate growth, to stimulate the economy to do that booming. Some of the brand new policies are already showing how inept, how incredibly incompetent this government is. Tens of thousands of pensioners might not get winter fuel payments by Christmas. The cost of energy is going up, the winter is already cold, it is here, but apparently there has been a surge in applications for pension credit since Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced in July that winter fuel payments for this year would be mainly limited to those receiving pension credit. And there was a backlog of 90,000 unprocessed claims as of mid-November, with around 9,000 being processed each week according to the latest official figures. So the government announced a policy to not pay winter fuel payments, but they are so pathetic, so dumb, that they didn't actually bother to formulate any kind of plan for how to process the wave of applications for pension credit after they told pensioners that they should go and apply for pension credit. I'm sorry, but what the actual fuck is going on? Who's in charge? Which imbecile put this together? We are almost at Christmas, and these people have still got a 10-week backlog of applications to process, a backlog that may actually still be growing. The winter is going to be over. There will be tens of thousands of old people having to choose between eating and heating their homes before these waste of space bureaucrat idiots sort this out. Remember how the UK government added VAT onto private school fees on a really popular strategy? Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that a lot of parents who are not the super rich, which is the majority of people who send their kids to private school, also can't afford this increase. So there's been a deluge, a large number of children moving over to state schools, and Surrey has run out of space for private school children. A parent sent a Freedom of Information request to the Surrey County Council asking how many places are available in schools in the entire county, and the response said that there was now not a single space available for children over 13. So what are parents who can't afford the increase in school fees meant to do? What choice have they got? Does Keir Starmer have a solution? Has he got a plan? Does he fuck? What a complete shamble. Earlier this week, we heard that jobs are now being cut. Employment is taking a massive dive, unprecedented dive in December, according to Standard & Poor's. This is after the increase in employer national insurance tax by Rachel Reeves. The economy in the UK is bad and it's just getting worse. Rachel from accounts has zero idea what she is doing because it turns out that pretending to be an economist and being an economist are not the same thing. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Please do not shoot the messenger. I'll see you later.